Hey, this is Red Rhyme, and today I'm going to be judging the Unit Design Challenge number 23, which the prompt for this one was to design a unit that costs or consumes at least 2 different base set units. So, without further ado, first up we have Punth, we have the Freeloader, 9 GGB, or 9, I can't talk for my life. 9G BBR, 1 supply, 5 health. Build time 3, fragile, click consume conduit, blast forge animals to gain attack 15 and exhaust 3. Okay, so first off, I have seen this exact idea multiple times, which is not particularly exciting. Additionally, I think Pumph knows this, but this unit would just be overpowered. It is called the Freeloader. So I feel like there's a little bit of self-awareness there, but the reason why this would be particularly overpowered is because tech buildings, in theory, should be worth whatever you're paying for them, like, per turn. But with the natural progression of the game, as you get towards the late game, you end up with too much tech for the amount of gold that you have, as you're forced to sell off your econ. So at worst, the Freeloader is just a Wincer, which is already a very strong unit. And as you progress through the game, you can keep firing it in situations where it's much more convenient to fire a Freeloader than it is to fire a Wincer. So you get my downvote. Since this contest mode and no one cares about karma, I'm just using upvote and downvote for my own sake. To track which units to revisit and to ignore when I'm kind of going through for my second sweep to sort of start ranking, top 3. Next we have I never know how to pronounce this name. Hepkikob, something like that. I'm just gonna make it as embarrassing as possible. Overamp drone, 4E, 10 supply, 3 health, sacrifice an engineer and a drone. Beginning of turn, gain 2 EE. So it's 10 supply, 3 health. Okay, that's actually kind of interesting. At first I thought that there was pretty much no reason whatsoever to buy this over just a drone. Because you're losing the Engie and the drone. But for what it's worth, you get a 3 health blocker, which is pretty significant, because it's at the start of turn that you get. Oh, and also you get an additional energy. Wait a minute. This unit's just overpowered, I think. Like, entirely because of the beginning of turn text here. I mean, it is an absorber, and it's an alt drone, so I shouldn't be treating it like it cannot be overpowered by design. I think this is a unit that could theoretically go into the game. I think it's also just a little bit, like, confusing to me. Like, why does it sacrifice an engine? I'm not entirely sure how to feel about this one. I'm gonna give it no vote for now, because I want to look at it again, but I'm not impressed, I would say. So now we have a Pooch, who won the last unit design challenge. We've got Ragnarok, 3 green, 1 supply. As an additional cost to buy Ragnarok, consume an Animus and 6 Tarsiers. Spell, construct 2 Gauss cannons and construct 9 Gauss charges. Okay, so you sell off an Animus and 6 Tarsiers, and you get 2 Gauss cannons and 9 Gauss charges. And this is for GGG. So theoretically, this is not particularly good value, right? Because you're trading, this is 3 temporary attack that you get in the next turn. And I guess you're not losing your start of turn attack. The Tarsiers have already attacked when you sacrifice them. But you're only gaining 5 additional attack and then every turn after that, you're losing 4 damage per turn, and you're also consuming an animus. You're also using 3 green, which at this point in the game could just be used on 3 force fields, and that would be a net swing of 3 health compared to holding drones. So honestly, my problem with this unit is that I think it's just too weak. I get that it's like a quote-unquote final push, which is cool. I guess you could use it to take advantage of the fact that Gauss cannons are 5 health. If you're literally about to get breached, you would buy this unit. But I think this unit is cool in terms of like thinking about the applications of when you would buy it. But I think for an actual Prismata unit that has to go in the game and appears in a lot of sets, this unit would just not get bought too often. So I'm not a big fan. Like, I think it's kind of like Endotherm, like it's kind of like the complaint some people have about Endotherm Kit in the sense that Endotherm Kit can actually be a game warping unit, but in most sets it just won't be. Ragnarok, I think, is less game warping and less likely to be purchased in a meaningful way, so I think it would just not have a current fit in the game. So it's a cool concept. I think Pooch always comes up with great concepts that are fun to read, but I don't think I would particularly like to see this one actually implemented. So next we have Rift with Conduit Cruncher, 3 GG, 4 supply, 3 health, prompt. As an additional cost to buy Conduit Cruncher, consume a Steel Splitter. Conduit Cruncher crunches Steel Splitters. Interesting. Start a turn, gain attack, click and consume a Conduit, construct 3 Gauss charges with exhaust 1. Huh. So this unit has a lot going on. First up, you have a prompt. It's a start of turn attacking unit. So unless you're using the click and consume a Conduit ability, it's blocking, which adds a lot of value. It sort of got like the overamp drone effect, where it looks like this was meant to be sort of like an econ unit, and it's like you pay 1 more gold and you get another energy, but then secretly it's also just a wall for some reason. But I think for this unit, that's a lot more reasonable because it's clearly costed like not very aggressively otherwise. The prompt is definitely makes it like even more scary in terms of it can defend, and it's also decently efficient attacker. But I mean, if you compare it to a unit like Urban Sentry, it compares poorly without like the click and consume a Conduit ability. And this unit costs tech, so it even costs 2 green. So I think it makes openings a little tougher to determine, and I think it's fine. So how good is it is really the question. Like, the click and consume a Conduit ability is probably what we should be looking at. So this can be good for selling off conduits. The problem is that the conduit seems like the tech building that you would least want to sell off, and you're losing the block by selling your conduit. I suppose if you have a larger absorber, this can be a nice utility ability. And you get full value out of your conduit almost, because your opponent has to defend the Gauss charges half a turn later. So this is a pretty nice flex option. And you can definitely just like burst someone down with this. Start turn again. I think this is a pretty fair and interesting unit. It's a little confusing to me, like why all of this like went together in the way that it did. Like I'm not sure what the flavor behind this unit is. Also, it's notably not fragile. It's like a pure green unit, which is a little weird. But I think it's cool enough and balanced and would make for interesting gameplay if you ignore like the flavor stuff. So I'd like to revisit this one. Next we have Cold Cannon with reverse arms race. 8 GB. Consume a Gauss Cannon Steel Splitter Tarsier Force Supply. Construct 15 prompt engineers. Holy shit. That's a lot of prompt engineers. That is... I like all the meme units, so just like getting... Like, I knew that was gonna happen when I made the challenge. This one's actually more interesting than the Freeloader, though. This one could maybe actually be a thing. So 8 GBR, how much is that? Like you're paying 8 GBR and you're selling a Gauss Cannon steel. You're selling 3 attack per turn. So this is theoretically, if you're getting like value out of the prompt engineers, like almost a fairish deal. But it's super unlikely that you're going to need 15 prompt engineers. Also, you need to buy a Gauss Cannon, a Steel Splitter, and a Tarsier. I think this unit would probably just not be played. But it could theoretically have some really funny implications against units like Endotherm or Windsor. Or Scorchillas, maybe. But like, mostly it would just be funny. I don't think it would actually be that good. I don't know. Maybe it's an okay unit against Burst. Like, if you ignore the fact that you have to buy these 2 crappy units and then sell them off to buy this. I think this unit's not quite aggressively costed enough, which sounds funny when it gives you 15 prompt engineers. I think it would need to I mean, obviously this is to keep the flavor of arms race. But the problem, like 3 attack per turn, you're paying more for the Gauss Cannon, Steel Splitter, and Tarsier than you would for advanced attackers. So 3 attack per turn's like theoretically not worth as much as you're paying here. But you have to buy the Gauss Cannon, Steel Splitter, and Tarsier, which makes it worse. I'm actually kind of like, I'm not gonna lie, this is actually kind of a cool idea. I think it has sort of the Ragnarok problem, where it probably just doesn't see play very often. But I'm less sold that this one has the Ragnarok problem. Like, you can come up with situations where this could actually be very powerful. I think it's kind of neat. So next we have Not Moronex with Green Energy Burst. Costs 10. Force Supply, 2 HP. As an additional cost to buy Green Energy Boost, consume a Force Field and a Conduit. Quick gain and 2 attack. Undoable Force Fields can't be consumed by this unit. Okay, so that's technicality number 1. That's a little bit confusing. Because you're consuming a prompt thing. I think the fact that you'd have to specify that undoable force fields can't be consumed by this unit is like a little bit rough. Honestly, I never really got it. Everyone's obsession with like consume and then undo. Like, sure, it looks clunky from a UI perspective, but it's like, in this particular situation, you would just undo the green energy burst, then undo the force field, and then do whatever you wanted with your turn. It's not like you're going to be able to buy green energy burst and then undo the force field. Unless it's programmed that way, maybe, because it's probably, like, Prisma's interface probably isn't intended to handle, like, these kinds of interactions, because there aren't any currently. But still. Anyways, that aside, I wouldn't worry about this too much because yeah, I think it could be worked around. Just how good is consume a force field my conduit, pay 10, get to attack? Answer's not very good. You're paying 2 health. Like, you're not just paying 1G because this sacks a drone. Wow, this unit's really underpowered. This unit is, like, disgustingly underpowered. Like, it's more efficient to just buy Gauss cannons. It's even 2 health. It's, like, not breach-proof for being green. I think this unit's just not that interesting and too weak, so I'm giving it the veto. Next we have Cogito with Drone Behemoth. I mean, let me make sure it's as under... Yeah, it's as underpowered as I think it is. Okay. I am reading that right. Every once in a while I do make a mistake and I look hilarious in one of these videos, but not this time. So now we have Cogito with Drone Behemoth. 10 BB, 4 supply, 10 health. As an additional cost to buy Drone Behemoth, consume 5 drones in a Blast Forge. Frontline blocker, click, gain 5 attack. Original you did, this unit was to help encourage blue mech breach proof. Concerned rushing it out might be too strong. Maybe should up the cost to 10 BB. Okay, so this was some original, like, there was a previous version of this and it got updated. Drone Behemoth. I'm avoiding clicking the show replies button, so makes this a little funny to read. But 5 drones and a blast forge, frontline blocker. Click, gain 5 attack. So you buy it, and then it. Oh no, wait, it's oh, it's a frontline unit. Whoa. This is quite the unit. So, in terms of raw value, this unit costs a lot for what it, kind of a lot for what it does, but not like that much for what it does. And if you can ever block with the 10 health, that's really efficient. That being said, you can't literally just rush this out because it costs like a wall or whatever. I will say that if your goal is to encourage blue mechy breach proof, I don't think this unit really does it, just because consuming 5 drones is still going to leave you with a lot of drones that are going to eat it when you go breach proof. And then you have a 10 health unit that you had to pay like a ton for. So I think that this unit would be used more as like a mid to late game attacking unit rather than like as a even kind of early game, just not like your first attacker probably. 5 drones and a blast forge. You probably don't really care that much about the fact that you're sacking a blast forge because this thing costs 10 BB. So in a lot of sets, you're just going to go drone behemoth, and then you're fine with 1 blast forge, especially after you sold 5 drones. 10 health. The front line is what makes this unit hard to evaluate, because theoretically, it might be better to go second drone behemoth and then pick off the drone behemoth, like when you're able to frontline it. How good is this unit if it like attacks once and then gets frontlined? It's like 10 health and 5 attack. Potentially less health if absorb is being denied. And you're paying a lot for it, but honestly you're not even paying that much for that. I think this unit's probably a little bit too vanilla good. Like, The raw cost of quote-unquote 30 BB, if you're taking drones Blast Forge and Blast Forge to like be worth that much for a 5 attacking unit, is just too efficient, and I think ramping to 10 attack might be very hard to do with this thing breathing down your neck in a lot of sets. And I think even if you eventually do frontline it, this might just create enough of an advantage to win. Because you still have to sink 10 health just to stop like 5 attack per turn. And 10 health's a lot. So I'm not sure how to feel about this one. This is an interesting concept. It's definitely a game warping unit. I think it's a little bit too much of a game warping unit. Like, I think there's a reason why Thunderhead has like frontline and lifespan 3, just to, like, so that there's always counterplay to it. Whereas I'm less convinced that Drone Behemoth has like counterplay in a lot of sets. If you don't have like burst options, it can just be really hard to be forced to frontline a unit like this. So I don't think it's a good design, even though it's a cool idea that could probably be worked into something usable. So next we have Zarek 77. There's a link to Discord. I guess I'll click it. Oh, we have fan art. Oh, I love fan art. Dual wielding splitter. Although I'm not really sure why this thing's like off. Yeah, if that's a weapon, okay, that makes sense. Oh god, I full screened this. How do we get out of here? There we go. So it's a steel splitter with like the Gauss cannon thing attached to it. I probably should have read the unit before clicking that. 8 health. It's a steel splitter and a Gauss cannon. I guess that makes sense. Fragile blocker. Click, gain an attack if this unit has at least 4 health. Ah, so it's like they can kill the Gauss. Wait, this is a really cool concept. This is, I don't know how good it is. It costs an engineer, a steel splitter, and a, or wait, is this an E or is this like an E as in the engineer button? I guess this is an energy. Yeah, notation wise, this would be an energy. But it's like a little weird to me because it's next to 2 units as though that's like a normal cost. So it says basically no cost to it. You're converting steel splitters and Gauss cannons, so the fact that you're buying those units is like some inherent cost. It's a fragile blocker. Gain attack and gain attack if this unit has at least 4 health. Kind of turns your steel splitter Gauss cannons into like potential like mini colossi. Like you can block it. I think because this is a blocker in a way to potentially absorb, this unit's completely fine. And I think it's hard, like, I think you can get a lot of cheat value out of the fact that this is a fragile blocker, and it's just like, suddenly you block for 7 on a steel splitter, and like, being able to sell a Gauss cannon for 5 extra health and then block on your steel splitter 1 turn is like, very good. And this unit costs basically nothing. But like, also this could be used for breach proof to turn steel splitters a little more breach proof. I think this unit has a lot of interesting applications and I really like it. And yes, it's a little cheap for potentially just being able to cheat blockers. But I think deciding whether to go for this unit is an interesting decision because it costs a steel splitter and a Gauss cannon. And that's like not particularly efficient. Like I think this unit has more of a hidden cost, which is why it doesn't have much of a real cost, even though you're getting potentially some pretty okay value out of this. So I really like it. Also, fan art is always much appreciated, even though it's literally just the Gauss cannon thing pasted to the other arm of the steel splitter. It is still like kind of cute. So next we have, God, what is this combination of consonants? Drigentile. I tried. Ticking time bomb Tertiary, 2R, 10 supply, 1 health. There's an additional cost by a ticking time bomb Tertiary, consume Tertiary, and an engineer. Okay, I like that flavor. Lifespan 3. Start of turn, gain attack. Click sacrifice ticking time bomb Tertiary to gain attack equal to 4 minus the remaining lifespan on this unit. Okay. So this is a cool concept. But I think there are two things that are a little bit worrisome about it. For one, oh no wait, you have to pay an engineer too, so maybe the cost is fine. Because you're actually, the more I read this unit, the more I think it's weak. Although it is a way to quote unquote sell your Tarsiers. But like you have to pay 4. You have to pay 4 for it. And then it's only 1 threat the next turn, and then it's 2 threat, and then it's 3. Extra damage. I mean, this unit's better than a Tarsier, but I don't think it's 2R and an engineer better than a Tarsier. In most situations. I also think the fact that you have to do math with the lifespan, like, makes for cool theory units. I think maybe it could be implemented, but it gets a little weird with Prismata's UI sometimes, where it's just like you have a stack of these things and you're like clicking them, and you have to figure out how much that does, and or it's just like you have to click a unit that's like in a certain place in the stack. I mean, it works for Doom Drone. I shouldn't be acting like that's that big of a deal. But I don't... Like, I think this unit's intuitive enough as to what it does, especially considering that it's named Ticking Time Bomb Tarsier. I think this is kind of a cool concept. I think the unit's a little weak, but it's not, like, hopelessly weak, I would say. So, maybe it's a thing. I think I've kind of sold myself on this design. I don't think it's like my favorite, but I think it's kind of cool. Next we have amateur microwave with ad hoc barricade. 0, consume a conduit, blast forge animus. 10 supply. Construct a prompt wall, force field, and husk. Okay. So this is clearly designed to be an inefficient unit, which is good. You don't want it to be an efficient unit. You get 6 health in exchange for 15 gold worth of tech building. 6 prompt health, notably. This is like actually not... Well, but you have to buy the Conduit, Blast Forge, and Animus, so you wouldn't like buy them to then use this. Like, this is only really a selling option. This is not as inefficient as I thought it was when I first looked at it, especially considering that it's granular. Like, comparative to wall, it's still pretty inefficient. I think it's a cool idea, honestly. Just, I think it's not quite impactful enough. Like, I can't really think of when you'd want to use ad hoc barricade other than, like, I guess it's like a final turn move. I don't know. 10 supply, I think, weirds me out a little bit, because I don't think you would ever use anywhere near 10 supply. I think this unit could potentially be, like, a little more efficient in a legendary unit. But I think it's fine as is, too. Probably would reduce it to 4 supply just for convenience. Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think I've seen some other ideas already that I'm more sold on, but I'll give it the thumbs up. Oh geez, did it just like erase a lot of my things? So it's okay. I remember what I liked and I didn't liked. I didn't like this. Overamp drone. I guess it's when I clicked on the. It's when I clicked on this that I. Yeah. Okay. So I was like lukewarm on this one, but I'm not really a fan, honestly. I was kind of just hedging to hold out in case there weren't many designs that I was in line with. Ragnarok's a cool idea, but I wasn't really sold. Conduit Cruncher, I gave a thumbs up. Burst Arms Race, they said kind of neat, but I'm not really sure. Green Energy Burst, no. Drum Behemoth, I think I said no to. I think it's a little too good. Okay, so we have our candidates. So what units do we like the least of these? I think I think dual wielding splitter is really cool. I think dual wielding splitter is probably the winner out of these. I'm not super sold on ad hoc barricade. I'm not super sold on reverse arms race. Like they just seem like units that are too situational to really want to have clogging the random set in a lot of situations. I think Conduit Cruncher is pretty cool. Maybe Conduit Cruncher. Oh, no, I like Dual Wielding Splitter is just so intuitive and like feels good flavor wise. Maybe it needs to cost a tiny bit more, but it's hard to say that it even does, honestly. Because it's like using an 8 health blocker for full value is kind of hard. It's actually a little tough to get like the value out of this effect. You're losing 2 attack when you block with it as well, because of like you have the Steel Splitter and the Gauss Cannon attached, and you're permanently losing a Gauss Cannon. I like this design. It's obviously aggressively costed, but that's good for a unit that's forcing you to buy Steel Splitters and Gauss Cannons, and that serves the absorbing role. I think it would be hard to use this unit, and I think it'd be kind of fun. And then I think Ticking Time Bomb Tarsier probably needs a little bit of a buff, but I think the idea is cooler than the other two in terms of like I could actually see this being used in an interesting way, and it being like a little bit tricky. So I think those are my picks. Thanks for watching, and I will have the next challenge up soon. Peace.